Lori Lightfoot is officially out, and Brandon Johnson is Chicago's new mayor. So the Chicago Mayoral Race is officially over and done, and we have our new mayor. And so in this video, I'm just going to be talking about my thoughts on this race and some things that have been happening in Chicago recently, and just my overall predictions of um, how I believe, like my predictions about the new mayor and what I believe will happen to Chicago down the line. Um, so I did look up a few things before doing this video because I don't. I hate to admit it, but I haven't really been following the Chicago mayoral race. I mean, like I've, I know, like I don't know much about the candidates. I'll say that, and so I had to just look a few things up before I make my predictions and before I express my thoughts about everything that's been going on. Um, so where should I start? Because a lot's been happening. Um, well, I'll start with uh, what's been happening in the news. So, a few days ago, many of you who do stay current on the news have probably already heard of the chaos that's been going on downtown with the teens taking over downtown yet again. And for me, when I heard of this, it just immediately brought about a sense of deja vu, um, because over the past few years, especially since the pandemic, um, a lot of crazy stuff, a lot of destruction has been happening downtown, and a lot of young people have been responsible. Well, most who've been responsible for have been younger people, specifically teenagers, and um, so yeah, that's been in the news. That's been in local news and national news too. So once again, Chicago has made national headlines for something that has not been good. And haven't heard a lot from our new mayor, Brandon Johnson. There's been a few things that he said. I'm going to get into that in a few minutes. Um, but they haven't. They've been. His words have been kind of disappointing. They kind of similar to what Lightfoot has said about Chicago crime and just overall downplaying, and just not taking it seriously enough. So, yeah, I actually have an article pulled up, but basically, um, there's a lot of teenagers just like jumping up and down on cars, like damaging property once again. A few teens were shot. Police were all over the area. Of course, a lot were arrested, and because it's just wreaking havoc downtown. Um, and they're saying, because the weather's getting warmer, that's why they're doing this. And I mean, who cares? Like, that just sounds like an excuse. It doesn't matter what the weather is like. Nobody should be doing this and behaving in this way. So, ABC 7 Chicago. This article, this is the article posted a few days ago about, oh, actually today, sorry, April 18th. Unruly downtown Chicago crowds raise alarm for Illinois Restaurant Association. Chicago police outline crowd control steps after violence, street takeovers near Millennium Park. And like I said, this is the deja vu. Like I believe this happened last year where they shut down. Well, not shut down, but I think in Millennium Park, uh, when they had to check people's IDs, and after hours, if you were a minor, and you had to be accompanied by an adult, and at a certain time, everybody had to leave. So yeah, that sort of thing was happening just last summer, and now we're kind of seeing a repeat. And summer's not even here yet. We just started spring, um, but the weather is getting warmer, so I guess we should expect this. But yeah, and then where the deja vu came for me was in 2020. That's where the whole country, the 2020 George Floyd riots. I talked about this in my other video. That's where the whole country went nuts, and the riots, looting, and everything. And especially, most of this happened during the summer. And again, downtown was just completely destroyed by all these young people. And yeah, seeing that now. And yeah, so I'll finish with the article. All right, this is with the Restaurant Association, trying to see what they've been saying about what specifically was going on. Video showed groups of young people causing mayhem on Michigan Avenue on Saturday and at 31st Street Beach on Friday. Some teenagers were shot, dozens of arrests were made, with businesses, residents, and tourists scared. These meetups are often hyped up and circulated on social media. Okay, this is about the Illinois Restaurant Association again. They're looking to the new mayor and the police to address. Well, the police have been out there. I mean, they've been always doing great. They've always been on this. Um, we need to start relying so heavily on the police because they can only do so much. That's why we have other officials and other leaders. Everybody's supposed to be working together, and it's not supposed to be the responsible. The responsibility is not supposed to be placed solely on one party because they become overburdened, and the police have been overburdened these past few years. It's been really horrible for them. They're not getting a lot of days off. They're working overtime. They're unbelievably stressed. Um, in addition to getting constantly demonized and killed, and just everything that comes with the job, and then more. And I believe if everybody was working together with the police rather than against them, then we'd have less problems. Like if everybody was holding these sorts of people, um, holding them responsible for their actions. So, um, yeah, the police, and they're looking to the new mayor. Well, I'm gonna get into what Johnson has said about this downtown mayhem. Um, but like I said, his words were pretty disappointing, and I'm just not surprised at all. I don't believe he's gonna um, that he's gonna undo all of the harm that Lightfoot has done to our city these past 4 years. I really don't have hope for our city. I don't have hope for our new mayor that things are going to improve based on what he said um, with this specific incident downtown. Now, yeah, he just got into office, and people may say I need to give him a chance, but I look at the history of these politicians, like what they've done for the people in the past, and I believe he's a former city commissioner, and former teacher. He taught social studies and a few other things, but um, yeah, I don't know. I just believe that voters are just repeating everything that they did the last 4 years. I really believe that Johnson was picked over Vallis because he's black and because he's a progressive. Uh, and when I was looking at some of the stuff that Vallis uh, didn't. Some of his beliefs. I mean, I disagreed with some of it, but yeah, I don't know about Johnson. But let me finish the article. Um, we want to okay, this is what the Chicago Restaurants Association is saying. We want to work with Mayor-elect Johnson to come up with new plans to deal with the violence. Illinois Restaurant Association President Sam Toya, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, said, "Nobody has a real plan. We have to come up with some new ideas, and we've got to keep people in authority. We've got to make sure they're doing their job." Yeah, that's correct. But don't look up don't look for help to people like Johnson's, because it doesn't seem like he's gonna be able to be of much help with this situation. Okay. The two nights of violence and mayhem during the warm weather leading to safety concerns and calls for action from city and community leaders along with businesses and residents. Now, here's what Lightfoot said. And I don't even know why they interviewed her. I mean, she's irrelevant now. Her time is done. She's gone. I mean, anything she has to say now is just, I mean, it doesn't matter because, I mean, she's out as far as I'm concerned. And these past 4 years, she hasn't done much of anything. So, I mean, they're still interviewing her about this. They need to talk more to Johnson than to Lightfoot because she really doesn't have uh, anything to say anymore. But nevertheless, I'll include her statement in this. We have taken steps and will take steps to address these teen trends. It's not the first time that we've addressed these issues, but our young people have an opportunity and a right to enjoy the entirety of our city, but they have to do it in a way that is respectful for people and property. And we did address that over the weekend, and we will continue to address it, Mayor Lori Lightfoot said. She's not the mayor anymore. I don't know. I thought she's not the mayor, and they're still referring to Brandon Johnson as mayor elect. So I thought he's the new mayor now, unless like she's still here for until a certain date. I don't know. I thought she was out. Maybe she's getting like a few more days. I don't know. The vast majority of young people, she said, this is continuing what she's saying. The vast majority of young people that came downtown because it was a great weather and an opportunity to enjoy the city. That's absolutely entirely appropriate. There are a few that came with different intentions and they will be dealt with, end quote. Okay, so let's pick apart this paragraph. Not that there is much to pick apart. So she starts with saying, "We have taken steps and will take steps to address these teen trends, like she has done for the past 4 years." No. It's not the first time we've addressed these issues, right? But our young people have an opportunity and a right to enjoy the entirety of our city. But they have to do it in a way that is respectful for people and property, which they haven't been doing, especially this past weekend. I don't think jumping on cars and disrespecting police and shooting other teens would be considered enjoying the city and respecting people and property. And we did address that over the weekend, and we will continue to address it. Now, she's never really addressed it, she's made excuses. The vast majority of young people that came downtown, because, okay, I'm tired of this already. Let's move on. Well, actually, one more thing. So she said the majority of people, the majority of people weren't responsible for what happened over the weekend downtown. It's just a few people. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I saw a lot of people in that video, and not all of them, for what I saw, were jumping on cars and doing all that crazy stuff. But even if it were the case, that was just like down to a few people. Um, I mean, is that all you have to say? How about addressing those few people and not just saying, "Oh, just a few people did it." Majority were great, and not too much to worry about. That's how she's making it sound. But like I said, what she says now is just irrelevant. It doesn't really matter anymore. So I'm moving on from this. Uh, she also tweeted, okay, should I read this now? Moving on. Okay, here's a quote from the alderwoman of that area that was affected. Her name is Sophia King. She says, quote, "It was very serious and we have to hold youth accountable and responsible. But we also need to bring the city together because we do need to have activities for the youth," end quote. Okay, I mean, well, where was she when all this has happened? Because this isn't the first time that this has happened, and she only has something to say when violence and chaos erupts in that area. But if she were being a proactive alderwoman and taking steps to prevent this from going on, because like violence, especially in the downtown area, has been up these past few years, and if she were more proactive in preventing that, then she wouldn't even be having to make this statement. But it seems like all these so-called leaders, the only active, the only activity, um, the only time they're active is when they're just making statements when everything's already happened, and then time goes by, people move on until the next tragedy happens, and then oh, there they are again. And but you don't even know these people's names because you don't ever hear about them speaking up any other time or doing anything any other time of the year except when tragedy strikes. So, I mean, where was she this whole time? Nowhere to be found. Um, and so we need to have activities for the youth. I mean, I've heard this several times too from other people who have commented on this, on what happened. Um, So Chicago's a very rich city. There's plenty to do all over the city. 3 million people stay here. I mean, there's plenty of activities for like everybody, for youth, for adults, everybody. There's summer programs. You can get a summer job. You can, I don't know, go to. You can do pretty much anything than jumping on top of cars and uh, causing disruption in the city. You can do pretty much anything other than that. I mean, there's stuff to do. We don't live in a third world country. There's plenty to do. There's plenty of activities. That's not really a valid excuse uh, as to why the youth are doing this and acting this way. Not a valid excuse at all. It sounds like she's saying, well, she's giving like she's like this she's saying this is like a solution, like more activities for the youth. I mean, like what? Everything I just listed. Summer job, a summer program. I mean, like even throughout the year, it doesn't have to be in the summer. There's like plenty of things to do, indoors and outdoors. It's Chicago, so yeah, there's plenty going on, plenty of things to do. But okay, moving on. Okay, this is a statement from Chicago Police. I'm just gonna. All right, okay. So the police are said they're gonna take steps, which include an increase police present at large gatherings. Okay, that's good. Monitoring all activity and police cameras. Okay, back checks at beach entry points. Okay, that they feel that's necessary, and I agree that it is necessary. Um, things starting to escalate again, you want to get ahead of, you know, all the crime and everything, and take the steps that you have to. So I support that. But like I said, the police are doing everything they need to do. We need to see more action from the people that we really don't see action from, and that's the mayor, the alder people, um, our court system. Can't forget them because they've been receiving a lot of complaints too from the people not doing their job, letting criminals go, walk free in the streets, which is why we're having this problem now. Working with youth and outreach workers. Okay. All right. Now here's a quote from Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson. Johnson called the chaos unacceptable, but he is also asking people not to demonize youth. Now, I was able to find the full quote from his Twitter page, and so I'm just gonna bring that up real fast and read it. So, this is Mayor-elect Johnson's statement on last night's unrest. He said, quote, "In no way do I condone the destructive activity we saw in the Loop and Lakefront this weekend." Um, okay, well, he doesn't condone it, but it doesn't sound like he's protesting it either. He sounds like he's kind of neutral on the whole thing. It is unacceptable and has no place in our city. However, it is not constructive to demonize youth who have otherwise been starved of opportunities in their own communities. Okay, let's pause there and just what? Okay, let's start with the demonizing youth part. So, okay, are we need to demonize those who are responsible for committing criminal acts, even if they are young. Um, it just sounds like he's saying because nobody's demonizing the youth. First of all, they're demonizing what happened over the weekend, which just so happens that young people were responsible for it. So yes, we should absolutely demonize that the the person who committed it and the act itself, because that's the only way we're gonna hold people responsible for it. Nobody's like demonizing the youth in general, so don't know why he said that. It doesn't make any sense. And then he said, "Who have otherwise been starved of opportunities in their own communities." So this is the victimhood that we're seeing again, and we've seen a lot of black people with this mentality, and they still have this mentality. And I guess Johnson, as our newest black mayor, he's no exception to that because we're seeing this victimhood mentality again. Um, so now we're trying to turn these criminals into victims by saying that they're starved of opportunities in their own communities. Now, um, I mean, we've talked about disinvestment in the south and west sides of Chicago and those types of communities. And but that is not an excuse to be a criminal. Let me see this again. I mean, I don't even know what he's trying to say. Let me move on. I'll get back to that. I don't want to spend too much time on that. So he goes on to say, our city must work together to create spaces for youth to gather safely and responsibly, under adult guidance and supervision, to ensure that every part of our city remains welcome for both residents and visitors. This is one aspect of my comprehensive approach to improve public safety and make Chicago livable for everyone. I mean, pretty much all politicians have been saying the same thing, and then here we are again, back to back to square one, back to um, what I'm trying to say, back to square one, and I keep getting stuck on this one part. Starved of opportunities in their communities. Yeah, it definitely seems like he's trying to um, turn them into victims. Uh, yeah, and I'm pretty sure he's mostly referring to um, black youth, because throughout all of this for the past few years, they've been most responsible for these incidents. Um, they're mostly black who are engaging in these crimes downtown and through other parts of the city. That's just a fact. And it seems like that's who he's referring to when he says, let's not demonize those who have been um, starved of opportunities. But all right, let me move on. That's what he had to say. That's his uh, Twitter quote. And he's received some criticism about this too, that it's not really addressing the issue. And he's being soft on crime, like most that this is what we've seen in most of our so-called leaders and alder people and mayor and governor, everybody in our courts especially, everybody's just been soft on crime. And it seems like Brandon Johnson is also taking that approach, especially what he said here. This doesn't seem like he's holding anybody responsible or accountable at all. All right, let's go back to the article, see what else it says. Okay. Let's see. Well, all right, that's pretty much it. There's the last one was a CPD statement, but they're doing what they're supposed to do, so I don't really need to read from that. Um, but yeah, that was that article. And both Lightfoot and Brand and Johnson, uh, just it's really bad. It's just bad. But now I'm gonna exit out of this, and now I'm going to talk about the candidates themselves. I'm talking about, even though Johnson won, Vallis lost. Um, I'm going to make my predictions now for Johnson and for the future of Chicago going forward for the next 4 years. And whether I believe he'll be good or bad for Chicago. And right now, from what he's been saying so far, I believe he's going to be bad. So I'm just going to go over. Now I was trying to find some things, like Google some things about Vallis and Johnson, and I was like getting a lot of articles And with uh, conservative and liberal sources, they'll have their biases. So I didn't really want to get into that. I wanted to get like a neutral source. So I said, you know what, instead of just wasting more time just searching for, just basic information, I decided why not just go to each of their separate websites, their main websites. Um, so that's what I did. And I just skimmed through some things real fast. We'll start with Johnson since he won the race, and then we'll go to Vallis. Um, so yeah, this is his website. This is where I'm going to see what his beliefs are because unfortunately, I didn't watch the mayoral debate. So sorry about that. I'm just going to get my information from their websites. So let's see. I'm going to skip right to. All right. So he's got goals that have to do with safe, vibrant neighborhoods, affordable housing, healthcare for all. Not a good idea. Too expensive. We've already been over that. Fully funded schools. Um, okay, and also it did mention in one of the articles I was reading that Johnson he made some comments in the past about defunding police, and now apparently he was trying to distance himself from those comments, and I mean no surprise because that's what the voters want is more protection in our city, more police, not defunding. That's the last thing we need. So no surprise he's distancing himself from that ridiculous comment. But um, now he's saying that Chicago needs to take a different approach um, with like less policing and more. What was it he said? More mental health programs for the youth and more. Oh, where's that article? I closed it out. What else did he say? Oh crap! What else did he say? Oh, employment programs. Yeah, something about employment programs. And so, I mean, we can have both. Uh, we can't just reduce our police force. Um, we can't do that, especially in a big city like Chicago. That's very counterproductive. That's not going to work at all. And he's saying we have to just like switch up our strategies and rely less on police and more on employ more employment programs and mental health programs. And that's good, but we need to have both. We can't reduce one and then have more of the other. There needs to be a balance of both, an appropriate, healthy balance, because both can be helpful if they're used in the right way. We can have policing and more employment and mental health programs because both of those are very important. And so is policing, more policing, not less policing. So I just wanted to add that because I remember reading something about that in an article. So that's sort of his stance on crime and policing. Just seems like he's another progressive that's going to be very soft on crime, which is not what we need right now in Chicago. And okay, so let me click on. I already said healthcare for all is a bad idea. Fully funded schools, that's a great idea. Affordable housing. I've always been for affordable housing, so I don't really have too much criticism about that. Let's go to safe and vibrant neighborhoods because crime is still everybody's attention right now. Can I click this? Um, okay, apparently not. Okay, this is weird. I'm trying to get more. Hold on the issues. Okay. Okay, here it is. City budget and revenue, education, environmental justice, gender equity. This is ridiculous. Why is, I mean, he's progressive, so I shouldn't be surprised, but why is all of this on his agenda? This is not relevant to the issues that Chicagoans are facing right now at all. Environmental justice, gender equity, arts and culture. What does that have to do with anything, Matthew? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to like him. Health and Human Services, immigration. That's pretty relevant because our border is still wide open and Chicago is still accepting illegal immigrants. But I highly doubt he's going to take the I highly doubt he's going to take the more conservative approach to immigration, which is uh, not allowing illegal immigrants into Chicago. LGBTQ rights. Oh my goodness. Public safety and police reform. Okay, I'm gonna go back to that. Reproductive rights. Still having the abortion debate. Transportation. Okay, let's go. Public safety and police reform. Because all the rest of this nonsense, I don't know why it's okay. He says, as mayor, I will chart a new strategy for public safety. Rather than relying on the same failed approaches that have brought trauma to communities across the city, I will work with police and first responders to invest in community based interventions that de escalate conflict. Oh, so work with the same people that he wants to defund. Okay. Reduce violence and make our communities safer. Invest in community based interventions that de escalate conflict. Yeah, that's not really gonna work. I will create an office of community safety, reopen the city's mental health clinics. Those definitely need to be reopened. Fully fund year round youth employment and foster partnerships between communities and law enforcement to make critical investments for preventing crime before it happens. The Chicago Police Department must comply with the federal consent decree. Yeah, I would have to look that up. And increase its homicide clearance rate. Um, okay, because I have heard that the police have been doing better in more in wait, give me a second. With unsolved crimes, with solving more unsolved crimes, I believe. Okay, I will work closely with the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability to hold police accountable and evaluate the goals and performance of the CPD, the Civilian Office of Police. Okay, blah, 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 blah. They're always saying police accountability and more police accountability and less accountability of the criminals and less accountability of the courts, less accountability of our leaders, more accountability of the very people who are doing more than everybody else to address crime in this city. Makes no sense. So I'm going to skip all that nonsense. I will remove the flawed gang database and support treatment not trauma. Reduce inefficiencies. Yeah, no, you won't. Reduce inefficiencies in public safety spending and direct more funds to violence and prevention and community safety programming that address the root causes of community violence. Well, I mean, what's his name is already doing that now. He just passed legislation to study the root causes of violence. Um, our governor, Pritzker, his name slipped my mind for a second there. He's already done that. He's doing that. So what he needs to be doing is not making statements that are against the police and work with them. My administration will attack these root causes of crime and poverty. No, you won't. Okay. Good schools, good jobs, housing, and mental health. And more police. Not less police. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm gonna close out of this and how far are we into? All right, 40 minutes. All right, I'm gonna close out of Johnson's page. And I don't want to cover a lot about, what he stands for. Um, I just went into the crime and public safety aspect. But I didn't really see much else. I went through everything else. He's gender equity. We'll see what he has to say about immigration. And then I'll go to Dallas. Because with Dallas, I have a lot to talk about too. So he said Chicago must lead with and live by the promise to be a sanctuary city. And okay, so I guess we can. I'm not sure if I need to read farther. So, like I said, he's for. I mean, that's what immigration reform is to him and other progressives. Is like just like the open borders and the sanctuary city, and just let everybody come through with little to no background checks, to no like any kind of checks, and yeah. So he's supporting that and welcome immigrants and refugees. Doesn't say whether these should be legal or illegal, but apparently he's illegal is fine too. Welcome illegal immigrants and refugees and treat them with dignity and respect. Um, well, demanding that immigrants come through legally is not denying them any dignity or respect, but yes, he would disagree with me on that. This sanctuary promise must extend to everyone who needs it in our city, and residents both old and new. Our public schools must be sanctuaries for all children by investing in dual language programs, ethnic studies, blah, 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 blah. We must coordinate efforts. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I think I'm just gonna move on to Vallis now. Oh, he's got a lot to say about immigration. He's got more to say about immigration than crime. So maybe that's more important to him. Okay. All right. That's it. I'm gonna move on to Vallis now. So close this out. And now I'm on Vallis. This is Vallis's page. And now we'll see what he has to say about about voter issues. Now, I do know that I believe he worked in the Chicago school system too. I'm not for sure. Um, some of the other things I read about him. Oh, well, he calls himself a Democrat, but he's more right leaning in his political beliefs. He takes more conservative approach than Johnson on crime. He believes there should be tougher penalties for misdemeanors. Um, he believes there should be more police. What else did he say? Let me just go back to the site. Oh, and I just saw this now. And he wants to expand charter schools. Now, let me start with that. So, I mean, I don't want. I both agree. I mean, I don't really agree with the harsher penalty. I mean, I agree and disagree with the harsher penalties for misdemeanors. I mean, for I think he said he referred to as minor crimes, but it depends on what the crime is, like what punishment it should receive. It depends on like what that specific minor crime is. Um, because I believe like some things that they consider minor are actually major. So yeah, but what happened over this weekend, that should be uh, punished harshly. Because I saw all sorts. I saw fires, damaged cars. Like I said, a few people were shot and killed. So yeah, that definitely shouldn't be placed in a minor crime category. Other people might say so because they're young, and they might say because they're age they should be punished less severely. But they're old enough to know what they're doing, so age should definitely not be it it shouldn't be the determining factor um, deciding what punishment they should receive. So yeah, and as far as expanding charter schools, well, I mean, think let's not expand what people can't really afford. What's the purpose of expanding charter schools? If, you know, because most students who attend charter schools, their families are wealthy and they can afford that. So it's just kind of limiting access. Um, it's kind of limiting access to education. Now, if you want to expand charter schools, you should make it more affordable, and you should also focus on public schools too, because I was also reading that um, public schools have been experiencing a decline in enrollment in Chicago, so that's definitely not good. So everybody's saying, let's fix our public schools, let's fix them. Let's actually fix them because so far, there's a reason why they've been having a decline in enrollment. It's not because they're being fixed. If they were being fixed, we wouldn't have more people enrolling in public schools, not less. So obviously, the problem is not being fixed at all. And so, if you want to expand charter schools, make them more affordable, and let's not forget our public schools because the majority of our students attend public schools, not charter schools. So let's focus on both, but let's focus more on fixing our public schools because they do need a lot of work. So let's move on to pieces about crime. All right, so he's got a comprehensive public safety plan. Yeah, I'm gonna start off with crime first. Last summer, Paul was brought in by the fraternal order of police to negotiate the Chicago Police Department's contract with the city after they operated for 4 years without one. Mayor Vallis will ensure that criminals are held accountable so that the city is safe again. Residents in all neighborhoods will feel safe. Suburbanites and tourists will no longer fear traveling downtown. Okay, we'll see what his actual public safety plan is. Okay, violent crime was still up in 2022 compared to pre COVID 2019. Murders are up 41%, and the number of people shot were up 33%. Now, see, when we're talking about crime, these are the things that we need to have numbers, we need to have statistics saying, this is how bad the issue is. It's still bad. It still needs to be addressed because X, Y, and Z, because this is what the data says, and this is the reason why we need to take bolder steps toward resolving it. It's good to have, the data to support uh, your resolutions, your goals. Chicago closed 2022 with more than 700 murders, counting all murders that occurred within the city limits. That is the third straight year, something we have not experienced in 30 years. Sadly, almost 200 school age children have been murdered since 2019. Okay, I'm just gonna, because we already know the facts now, I'm just gonna, skip ahead to what he's planning on doing about that. Because we need to do more than just, state the facts. Like, what are you gonna do about this? What are you gonna do about the increase in murders and, uh, Okay, dating back long before I announced my run for mayor, I have been critical in articles, interviews, and social media of the state's attorney and Cook County judges. Yes, exactly. I've been talking about them too. Kim Fox and who's that judge who's letting all the criminals go on electronic monitoring? Because it all starts with him. I forgot his name. I'm sorry. Let me look him up actually. Well, after this, I don't want to get sidetracked. Um, but yeah, so yeah, they do need to be held accountable. So he's right with that. But the reality is that prosecutions start with making arrests. All right, I'm still trying to get to his comprehensive plan. Maybe this is it. Okay, here it is. Here's the bullet points. Okay, prioritizing. He says we need to wait. Leadership that has failed to provide police. Wait, hold on. Let me go back. Sorry. Our current state of affairs is a direct consequence of a wholesale failure of competent leadership and public safety. Leadership that has failed to provide police with the strategy, staffing, resources, and support needed for effective collaborative, community informed policing. Policing that prioritizes protecting victims and witnesses of violent crimes. Yeah, I said that before too. Because right now, um, our so-called leaders and courts are prioritizing the criminals over the victims. There have been more protections and legislations that have been put in place to support uh, to um, to support the criminal than helping the victim. And So, when you release somebody on electronic monitoring, that doesn't help the victim because that helps the criminal because they get to, go out during those specific times that they're free to go out when they shouldn't be in jail to victimize somebody else. And then, the cycle continues. And so, yeah, I agree with that. Recognize that personal well being starts with personal safety. Recognize that healthy communities cannot develop and thrive in an environment of fear and trauma. I'm not sure if this is his comprehensive plan. Uh, it might be. Understands that the pursuit of economic, social, and cultural opportunity and enrichment requires the freedom to move about all parts of the great city without fear. Okay. I am therefore calling for and pledging the following. All right, maybe this is it. Here it is. The immediate dismissal of the absentee Superintendent David Brown and his leadership team. Okay, well, if you've seen most of my videos on Chicago crime, I was, supporting David Brown. Just because of, I watched a lot of his press conferences, and when things were happening to his officers, he's speaking out against it. Didn't seem like he was afraid of calling out the criminals and everything. But it, now looking back on it, it does seem like he didn't. I think he said one time we shouldn't like point fingers. I don't know, but he didn't call out the courts. He didn't call out Kim Fox. He didn't call out Lightfoot. Everybody who was supposed to, be doing something that were remaining silent. But and Lightfoot, she didn't during her term. She was doing things that were hurting his officers, and he wasn't speaking out against that. He definitely should have. I don't know why he didn't. Maybe he just didn't want to create any conflicts on his end, or maybe he was afraid to. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, yeah, if we get a new police superintendent, it would help if they would, you know, call out our leaders and say, "Hey, stop, stop hurting, stop hurting our police departments. Stop taking things away. Stop limiting our powers, and start working with us. We need somebody in charge of our Chicago Police Department that is strong enough to say those sorts of things." And yeah, he didn't call out the court system for releasing criminals that they helped to put in jail and charged, and the courts are releasing and just making their jobs harder. So yeah, he didn't do that, and he should have done that. But yeah, but okay, what else? But he was very active during the 2020 riots. That's when I really started supporting him and his officers. But were there some things that he could have done better? Yeah, now that I look back on it. I will do so. So you say he's going to replace David Brown if he were elected. I will do so on the first day as mayor and will appoint a new interim superintendent who will immediately redirect resources and personnel to the districts and begin the work of restoring the infrastructure and philosophy of community policing. I will also assemble a new leadership team from within the Chicago Police Department of professionally accomplished sworn personnel, supported with expert civilian professionals, as is done in the best departments nationally. Yeah, because I heard that CPD doesn't really have like an official leader, so maybe they could use that too. That would help as long as they're competent. So now that Johnson is mayor elect, I'm not sure if he's going to keep David Brown or if he's going to replace him and remove him. I don't know. Rebuild sworn officer staffing from the current 11,710 to the fully appropriated 13,500 level that existed when I was the City of Chicago budget director. So I assume he's talking about um, that's how many current officers we have is 11,710, and we're like almost 2,000, over 1,000 below how many officers we should have. So yeah, that's an issue. Um, 1,000 missing officers, that's a lot, because imagine what an additional 1,000 officers or even more would do to help the city. Close the door on. All right, let me see how much more. I just did crime. Let me. So yeah, he seems to be tougher on crime. He's supportive of more police, and yeah, it seems to be opposite of what Johnson wants to do. Let me go back to. Let me see. Now he's got a lot to say about crime and policing, which is good because, like I said, that's like the main issue that Chicago's still focusing on right now, still dealing with. And he's got like a lot to say, like a lot more than Johnson has to say. Um, so that is one good thing. I don't know. I'm not really gonna read all of it, but so far it sounds pretty good. And he's talking about hiring private security on CTA, hire more CPD officers. I heard that that used to be a thing years ago, and now it's not. So yeah, that could help. Yeah, he's got a ton to say about this, but I'm going to move on to education, I think. He's got education, crime, budget. Let me go to budget because I already talked about his stance on charter schools and what I thought about that. And then I'm gonna move on to my predictions. Now I already said that I didn't think that Johnson was going to be a good mayor for Chicago or really make a difference. Uh, but yeah, I might have more to say about that once I finish with these candidates. All right, Paul's economic development plan. We will have to make sure that the mission objectives of CDA. What's CDA? Does it explain what CDA is? Community Development Authority. Sorry. We will have to make sure that the mission objectives of the Community Development Authority are not slowed or even obstructed by inevitable headwinds of the prevailing way of doing business. Doing so should involve using the collective budget and purchasing power of city taxpayer money, $28 billion across the city and sister agencies. I think I'm gonna have to move on soon because like I'm not an expert in economics or business or anything like or budget or anything. Um, I just believe, as far as the budget is concerned, we're allocated we're given a certain amount of, if we have a certain amount of money and we're giving a certain amount from the federal government, it should be equally allocated um, toward our law enforcement, education, transportation, um, and towards other important areas in our city that uh, need funding the most. And now some institutions may need more funding than others, um, but it should be as equally balanced as possible. As long as we're not, there's issues with overspending or spending things that, aren't really necessary or just, wasting taxpayer money. Remember, I was talking about my dream the other day, and one of the points I made in my dream speech was that we can't waste taxpayer money on what did I say? We can't waste taxpayer money on like government projects that are uh, I can't remember, but not wasting taxpayer money and not wasting any money that's given to us by the federal government on things that aren't going to help our city. And that is things like LGBTQ, on gender equality, on all this other nonsense that is not relevant to uh, the issues that our city is currently facing. So as long as the budget goes towards that, then I'm fine with that. But I'm gonna go back to education now, and then I'll do my predictions and let that be the end of the conclusion of the video. So here's Paul Vallis's education plan. I have to scroll a little to find it because he, like I said, he did have experience in the education system. All right, so he says restore schools as community anchors with open campuses offering extended day and year services. Is this his plan? Schools need to be open well into the evening, weekend, and holidays to provide for the academic support to make up for lost instructional time. Um, um, okay. I mean, I love school, so I would never have a problem with that. But I'm in college though. My college stays open late, but as far as high schools and grammar schools, they close a lot earlier than colleges, of course. So he's talking about keeping them open later, so um, the students will have something to do. And yeah, I mean, as long as they have the staff and they pay the staff well enough to stay, after hours, and if it proves to actually work, I don't have, I don't disagree with keeping the schools open longer. Um, Now, I do believe that. Well, I'll go on before I finish that thought. Create high school work study programs. All right, work study programs. Yeah, they have those in college, but I'm not sure if they have those in high school. When I was in high school, I don't think I heard of a work study program, but I was in a public school. I'm not sure if they have those in charter schools or other high schools. Probably not. I'm not sure. I can only speak for as a former public school student. But that would be good. Creating high school work study programs. I agree with that. Alternative schools and adult education. and occupational training centers will reclaim students lost to the system. Okay, I agree with that. Mm, systemically identify children at risk and provide early intervention and support. Yes. Okay. All right. So we have less to say here than public safety. Um, but yeah, I agree with some of that. But the main issue is the actual curriculum. And I've mentioned this before, but there are a lot of things, and I mean, this has been a debate in these meetings. What are they called? Like these parent school meetings. That they have openly, where the parents go up and they speak on the podium to the school board meetings. Um, and they've been in the news for the past couple of years because of the controversy surrounding what their kids are learning in school. And that definitely needs to be addressed. I mean, we're always talking about funding, which is important. We're talking about class sizes. We're talking about um, teachers, um, teachers getting paid more, which is important. We're talking about extracurricular activities. We're talking about all these things. We're not really talking about getting down to the issues that are really important, which is what these parents are concerned about, and that's a very legitimate concern. If I had a child that was, you know, in like third grade and learning about LGBTQ issues and being taught that if I have a daughter that if she doesn't feel like she's a female and she wants to become male, then that's fine, and she should be validated for that. I would have an issue with that too as a parent. I'm not a parent, and I still, have an issue with that of kids and students being taught that. Really, at any age, college age too, because it's happening. It's infiltrated our whole American education system. This, like, whatever you want to call this, I call it evil. That's what it is. Um, that's what needs to be addressed more than anything, I believe. Uh, if we do get more funding needs to be put towards less of these like weird, crazy classes and more towards the core classes like reading, math, science, history, English, so on and so forth, and less of these other things. So that's the main problem that I see in our education system today is the curriculum. Um, if students were being taught what they should actually be taught and actually getting an education, then we wouldn't have low test scores. We wouldn't have to have more funding um, to help with the test scores, and we just wouldn't be having a lot of issues that we're having in our schools now if students were being taught what they were supposed to, what they're supposed to be taught. So yeah, um, I'm gonna close out Dallas. That's all I have to say. And as for my predictions, well, I already said Brandon Johnson is our new mayor, and I don't. I'm just gonna say it. He's not going to. I'm not gonna say I don't think he's not gonna do a good job. I'm 99.9% certain that he is not going to help Chicago, and he's not going to. Um, I just believe he's gonna follow in Lightfoot's footsteps. Yeah, Lightfoot's footsteps. But yeah, I don't. He's not gonna do. I don't believe he's gonna do much good for our city. And that's in a weird way, that kind of encourages me because you guys, whoever's been following my channel, knows that I really want to run for Chicago mayor, and um, I'm waiting for my opportunity. And but there are some things that I have to do personally to get myself prepared for that. So for the next 4 years, I could probably, as a citizen, look forward to more of the same old. But I can also be preparing myself to, maybe turn the city around. Um, but yeah, those are my thoughts and predictions on the Chicago mayoral race.